For this lesson, I have yet another website for you to work with. So let's choose Manage Sites, New Site, and I'm going to call this one Fishy. And if you look in your project files, in Part 2, Lesson 2, you'll find a folder called Fishy. And you might as well identify the Images folder. Click Done. And if you open up the index page, you'll understand why I called it fishy. Have you ever felt like this when you were looking at HTML code? Yeah. Well, if you breathe easier in Design View than you do in Code View, I hope you can still learn to appreciate that Split View is a great way to work in Dreamweaver. I use this option a lot when I'm working, especially, as you've seen in earlier lessons, when I'm working with div tags and I'm trying to be very precise about where I insert them. I also find Split View especially helpful for troubleshooting. But before we even get into the heart of this lesson, let me reassure you that you don't have to learn everything there is to know about HTML to make it worth learning a few of the important things, and that's what this lesson's about. So let's start with a few of the basics. Behind the scenes, when you're looking at a page like this, the code back here is called HTML. Well, okay, those of you who know better see a little CSS in there too. But I want you to appreciate that HTML is the hypertext markup language. And that markup language tells the browser where text and images should appear on the page and how they should be displayed. That's the markup part. You should also know that although HTML is often called a programming language, I feel compelled to point out here that HTML isn't really a programming language, at least not like C or C++ or even JavaScript. HTML is a markup language. You can't use it to create complex applications like cool video games or spreadsheet programs. You'll need real programming for that. The good news is that means you can learn the fundamentals of HTML relatively quickly, in a matter of hours or days, rather than years, which is what most people spend mastering a program like C#. As a general rule, HTML pages are divided into two distinct parts. If I scroll up a little, you can see here, there's a close head tag here, and everything above that, from the head tag up here to the head tag down here, is, as you might assume, the head section of the page. See this tag called body? Everything from here down is the body section of the page. And notice when I highlight everything in the body section, you actually see that in Design View here. Only content that appears between the open and close body tags will display in the browser window. Everything in the head tag is invisible to the main browser display area. That's why you see things like this CSS here. Everything from style here to close style, that's CSS. And that's CSS internally stored in this page. Remember, we could store that in an external style sheet and not have it in our HTML document. But I wanted you to see a little CSS at the same time that we're looking at HTML. You'll also sometimes find JavaScript up here at the top of the page. So if you've ever seen something that looks really complicated up here, it's quite likely it's JavaScript being used for something like the rollover images we created in our behaviors lesson.